Morning, everyone.
Morning.
As Matt mentioned, my name is Donnell. I serve as one of many leaders at North Edgecombe High School. But before I begin, I do want to give a special thanks and demonstrate gratitude to two special people in the room. That is James and Matt, who both served as mentors in my life, but have been like dear friends and people who I can lean on when I need someone most. So I'm grateful. And to the rest of you guys, thank you for having me here today. So as Matt mentioned, I am a graduate of the Northeast Leadership Academy through NC State. I was a Teach for America Corps member, so I taught 7th grade at a small middle school in eastern North Carolina before transitioning through the Northeast Leadership Academy. I completed my principal residency in Halifax County at Southeast Halifax High School. I stayed there for a short time before being named the principal at North Edgecombe at 26. Very scary moment, but I made it through. North Edgecombe High School is a small Title I rural school in Edgecombe County, North Carolina. I often say that we serve a school of just 1%ers. We serve a school of 1% of the wealthiest kids that you could ever meet in your life. Those kids are rich with hope. They're rich with values. They're rich with purpose. And they're rich with passion. And we see that in them every day. My school family will get me if I do not elevate our core values in this space. We want to ensure that they show up. Like, that's what gives me the inspiration to continue to do this work. Our vision for our school is that our students will be the architect of their own lives. That our students will go out into the world and they'll create the opportunities that they want in front of them, and that no barrier will prevent them from getting to it. So we want to make sure students leave us with the navigational capital and understanding of like how to get there and how to make those things true for themselves. So these are our design anchors. So you can think of our design anchors as like your grandma's like memorable recipe. We sprinkled them across all of our designs at North. You know, your grandma's like pie tastes the same every time. So that's our design anchors help us distill the things that matter the most in our school design. They ensure that the totality of our vision remains coherent in everything that we do at our school. And these sort of serve as our guardrails and ensure like further iterations remain like consistent. So we love first. We recognize the humanity that exists in every person in our building, every person that stands next to us. And we see them deeply for who they are. And we allow them to be just that on our school campus. We're rooted right here. We believe that we design with people and not for people. We're in the driver's seat, and we're on the hook for the transformation that will take place in our community alongside of our students. We believe that there is no normal. That because we've done school the same way that we've done school for so long, doesn't mean that that has to still be true. So we're willing to run right into the risk, and we're willing to do what's necessary to ensure that our kids have access to their bold aspirations. We build, we iterate, and we build. And if it does not work, we're willing to discard it, and we're willing to try again. Because our kids deserve it. And we believe that everyone owns everything. Like as a principal of the school, I'm not the central core designer of everything that happens in our school. Sometimes that means like as a principal, I step all the way back and my teachers step forward. Sometimes that means they step all the way back and our kids step forward. But everyone is responsible for creating something magical in our school. And we believe that like each one of the design anchors, alone they're really powerful, but together they're magical. Can anyone tell me what the 7.5 billion represents? Yes, it's the population. It's the number of people in the world. Can anyone tell me what the one represents? Just you. So before I continue with the presentation, I am going to invite you guys to join me in a really quick activity to help advance a point that I want to make as we continue through the presentation. So just for a second, I'm going to ask Matt. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I love you dearly. I'm going to ask Matt to come to the front and help me model this activity that I'm going to ask all of you to engage in with me. So this protocol is called, this activity is called Who Are You? So it helps help you name the salient parts of your identity that you don't often get to name, or you don't often have the time or space to think about. So I'm gonna ask you guys to stand up in a sec. You're gonna find a partner. One partner is gonna be A, one partner is gonna be B. B will ask, who are you, consecutively, and A will respond with the salient parts of your identity that matters the most. And then we'll switch. So we'll do that for 30 seconds each. Then I'm gonna ask you to go and find someone different. And I want you to try your hardest to try and name the salient parts of your identity that you didn't name before. Everyone has it? Cool. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who are you?
I'm a black male.
Who are you?
I'm a dreamer.
Who are you?
I am someone who believes in kids.
Who are you?
I was born to a 16-year-old mother.
Who are you?
I grew up in poverty.
Who are you?
I don't live in poverty anymore.
Who are you?
I'm someone who recognizes my privilege.
Who are you?
I am using that privilege to change the lives of kids.
Who are you?
I am someone who is creative.
Who are you?
I am a believer of a different world. So I'm gonna challenge you guys to do the same. Again, you're gonna find a partner. Someone's gonna ask, who are you, for 30 seconds consecutively. And then A will respond with those salient parts of your identity. And then I'll give you guys the charge to switch. Cool? All right, now we're gonna switch. Hopefully you're sweating now.
Hi, darling.
All right, guys, I'm gonna ask you to find a new partner. And we're gonna engage in the same protocol. I'm gonna ask you to connect with someone new. And we're starting now. All right, you're gonna switch. All right, hopefully you had a great time. I'm gonna invite you guys back to your seats. right, guys, I'm just for a sec.
And then I'll get you and
I'm gonna ask us to
and then I'll call
just open up the floor, have a quick conversation just about like what did that feel like for you, if anyone wants to take the boat risk. Why did that feel emotional for you?
kind of vulnerable. Somebody continuously asking you, "Who are you?" And I have to say, in all the manner in which he asked the question continued to be honest and sincere, and then it felt more vulnerable and more vulnerable.
Thank you for taking the first boat risk. What about you?
Very similar. It was very emotional. It really gave you a chance to really find out who you really are. Sometimes you don't take time to ask yourself that question.
Yeah, indeed. What are some other things that like you guys like begin to recognize as you were engaging in the activity? Felt connected. Yeah.
Perhaps we should have that kind of thinking about ourselves more often. It's not often that you stop and think, who am I, who I want to be?
For sure. Anyone else? Get to connect and build relationships with people. You see identity intersections? Yeah.
So the first few times it could be on the sort of surface level, but after about 4 or 5 times, that
Get deep. Yeah, and one thing that I hope became true for you, you recognize like yes, we have like an intersection in our identities, but also we're all vastly different people with vastly different ways of operating in the world, and vastly, in many ways, like ways of seeing the world, which are often shaped by our lived experiences. And just like you guys are one of however many people in this room, and you're one of 7.5 billion people, our kids are as well. So this is the estimated number of students who are in North Carolina public schools. For the 1.5 million students. And yet, no one is average, not your spouse, not your colleagues in this room, not me, and certainly not the kids that are sitting in classrooms across the state of North Carolina. They're all vastly different, unique perspectives, very different life contexts, very different lived experiences. And their individuality matters. And just like the kids in North Edgecombe are 1 in 1.5 million, they're also 1 in 220. That's the number of students in my school. And they deserve to have their identities, like who they are, like understood and deeply recognized. And as Matt mentioned, if that's not happening for kids in my school building, I'm extending any justice. Because each one of them have their own zone of genius. So, we'll take a sec to introduce you to a few of my babies. So this here is Jaquez. Jaquez is a brilliant kid. Jaquez loves hanging with friends. He gets excited about math. He has a quick wit. He writes like critically and brilliantly. Jaquez doesn't quite see any relevance in school. Jaquez has a wealth of lived experiences, a wealth of life context that's already downloaded into his long-term memory. And we don't leverage that to drive our curriculum. So school has not worked for him. This is Giselle. It's crazy. I've been a principal at North for 4 years, so I've seen the kids like grow up, and it's an amazing experience to watch. Giselle is another remarkable student. Her gifts, talents look very different than Jaquez's. She loves art. She loves to sing. Those things are the things that induce the most like oxytocin in her body. She is really good at math, has really great grades. She also has a deep heritage. She also has a deep historical past that she often loves to talk about. Her life context is different. But we don't use that to drive our curriculum. So just like this amazing kid here, school has not worked for her. This is Justin. I've gotten to know Justin pretty deeply this year. He stops by my office every day before he leaves for his bus. And he leaves me drawings. So Justin loves to draw. He loves anime. He absolutely loves to build Legos. Those things light him on fire. He also loves doing those things instead of science. And nothing's wrong with that. But just like my other two precious babies, school has not worked for him. Because we aren't using his passions and his gifts and his interests to drive our curriculum. There's no relevance there. Because schools are often designed for the 1.5 million and not for the three of them. We're different, vastly, in many different ways. Different life context, different lived experiences, different cultural backgrounds, different rich and deep salient parts of their identities, and we never leverage those in school. But they're not average. So we have to start building towards an average. And that's what we've often done in school. We've designed schools for the 1.5 and not for just the 1. So schools have not worked for kids. And we really believe at North Edgecombe, viscerally, that if school does not work for 1, our school is not working. And just for a sec, James, do you mind if I use your twins to drive an example? No, well, no, I'm good. So you mentioned James is a good friend of mine. James has a twin girl and a boy. So imagine, and I'm gonna land this point to kind of drive forward this idea of equality versus equity in schools. James for sure could give you guys a lecture on that. He's way more street cred than I do in regard to this topic. But I imagine as a father, when he's raising his kids, at one point, his daughter may need food. At that same point, his son may need water. Equality is we give both those kids food, though their needs are vastly different. And that's how we've designed schools today, around the 1.5, built for equality. I don't think anywhere in the definition of equality does it say justice, or does it say fair? So here's how it happens in schools often, in traditional models. They all get English at the same time. They all have science at the same time. They often get math at the same time. And then we force them to eat lunch at the same time, though they may not be hungry. Shout out to the No Kids Hungry initiative. Second Chance Breakfast is absolutely amazing. This is a model built on standardization. It's a model built on industrial schooling, where we're one size fit all. We're pushing kids out of the factory model without praising and celebrating and affirming the richness that kids bring to our schools every day. This is an equal education. It's been a traditional model that we've committed to for so long. So we go back to James's twin. Twins is an example. Here's what equity would look like. James is raising his boy and girl. At one point, his boy needs food. His daughter needs water. He gets his boy food when he needs food. He gets his daughter water when she needs water. And guess what? If she needs more water, we get her more water. And that's equity. And schools should reflect the exact same thing. He needs science. He's passionate about science. Then how might we use math centered on something he loves to transfer new stimuli from his working memory to his long-term memory as fast as we can? If he already has like a deep life context, he's coming to our school. It's not empty, right? He's coming to our school with like vastly lived experiences, and those are the things that light him on fire. Then why aren't we using math to drive that? Or using that to drive math, rather. And when he needs more math, we get him more math when he needs it. And when she needs more English, we get her more English when she needs it. But that's a model built on equity. Every kid in our school buildings should get exactly what they need when they need it. We go the extra mile. They get it because they deserve it. And they get it because all of us who are in school buildings in front of kids every day, we owe that to them. Here's where designing for average, or designing for average, has gotten us. And our kids, they're not failures. They can do, they can be, and they're willing to try. And they don't deserve this. And because of that, our staff at North Edgecombe High School and at Phillips Middle School, my sister Jenny O'Meara is serving, that's our case for change. We also believe that, again, our kids can be successful. We just hadn't created the conditions necessary to get them there. And I also believe our kids had the gift long before they came in our schools. Our job is to find it, nurture it, pull it out of them, and show them how to use that talent, that gift, to light up the world. As a principal of North Edgecombe, I owe them that. So farmers and gardeners know you cannot make a plant grow. The plant grows itself. What you can do is provide the conditions for growth. We're not in the business of changing kids, because nothing's wrong with them. We have to change the conditions in which they grow. They're not broken. And if people see them as broken, they reflect the systems that has been designed in front of them. But it's nothing to fix. And my grandma would often tell me, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we needed to change the conditions. And Restart's flexibility allowed us to do just that. So we were able to leverage, like many of our flexibilities, to create a very different school for kids. One in which they can raise their hand to come to every day. One in which they know they're going to be loved and supported by a teacher they feel most connected to. One in which they know that people are running sprints for them every day to make sure that they have access to opportunity. Again, our kids are not average across every characteristic that matters to human beings. They're jagged. They have edges. and we have to design at the margin. Look how far off like kids or people move from the average. Because nothing is there. It's an empty middle. And our schools must flex and shift with the growing needs and demands of kids. So here's how we've leveraged Restart to get there. So often in schools, we pick up from our past, we put it in our futures, because the inertia of the status quo can be incredibly heavy. And sometimes it's hard for us to see something different or even work towards it. So we pick up from the past and we put in our futures on this conveyor belt, though it may not work for kids. We do this predictable thing, this predictable input, and we get this predictable output. But we were able to leverage Restart to move from the probable, the predictable, to the possible. Leveraging this formula here. Again, we design with our kids and not for our kids. So we first got the Restart flexibility. We had to take a deep step back. Now we have this flexibility. What do we do? What's our next sprint forward? We wanted to start with our children and our community. What are their aspirations? What are their realities? How might we leverage that in our school design? So, alongside of our Director of Innovation, Aaron Swanson, our Superintendent, Dr. Bridges, my great friend, Jenny, who is also a graduate of the Northeast Leadership Academy, we wanted to get deeply interested in our children's lives. So we sat down and we scripted 100 empathy interviews with kids and families, sitting on couches, sitting at dinner tables, sitting in the cafeteria with children, wanting to know, like, what are your hopes, what are your dreams, and how can we make that true in our new design? We rode buses, our teachers jumped on buses. We want to know the small parts of our student day. Like, what are the things that they're really finding joy in? What are the hard moments of their lives? We were able to take, like, those interview questions or answers, able to build insights. So we're looking at the things that, like, were really non-obvious, but the things that had the most tension. An example we often use is, like, one that wouldn't be a great insight would be people want nutritional value in food. It's, like, non-obvious. But attention would be people want nutritional value, but they also want to be indulgent. I'm really sure that's how, like, the Impossible Burger was created. So we use those insights to create how might we questions. The two things that came up, like the song Beneath the Music, was that our parents wanted our kids to do the things they're really passionate about and also explore their rich identities and also learn how to be resilient in tough moments. So we scripted out how might we questions. How might we build a school that ... We're able to turn those how might we questions into a pilot model, in which I'm going to show you guys in just a second. We also were looking at the demands of the future, like what is going to be required of our kids, and how might we ensure that they got enough at-bats before they leave our school that they can run right into those opportunities. And how are we ensuring that everything that we do at North Edgecombe High School was science-facing? Like, what does the science of learning and development say, and how might we leverage that in everything that we design at our school? Alongside of Restart, we're able to move closer to this possible future. So we partnered with a group of learning engineers and school designers called Transcend, and we were able to take those insights and those how might we questions and develop a small pilot program in which we're scaling this year. So we took 15 kids from Phillips Middle School, 15 kids from North Edgecombe High School, put them in one space, and gave them voice around how might we design a school that works for you, where they could do the things they were passionate about, they could learn to build resilience. And then when those things weren't working, we were able to discard, create new designs to make sure that we're getting closer to that answer. how might we build a school that works for every kid and shifts and flexes around their jaggedness. So we started with a micro school. If someone could hit the link on that, it would be super helpful. I'm gonna play a few minutes of the video, and then I'll kind of talk through some of the components that we have been able to leverage. Yeah, it's on the slide itself. And if not, it's YouTube. It's like we drive it and then keep going. I'd rather pull that up. So while they pull that up, I'll just kind of keep talking through like some of our components of like Restart that we've been able to leverage the most. One has been time. We've been able to use the flexibilities that we're granted around time to ensure kids get what they need when they need it. So for an example, 2 years ago, we decided to bring our students back to school a little bit earlier, 2 or 3 weeks earlier. We're taking those 2 or 3 weeks and sprinkle them right back across the school year. So our students have one Friday a month off, and our teachers. One, we were trying to curtail like learning loss, because some of the science says that students could lose up to a third of their learning just based on our calendar structures. Especially for kids who don't have experiences that replicate the school environment, that can be incredibly damaging. So we brought them back a few days earlier, but then we gave them like check-in days, like self-care days. One, we believe that cognitive overload is a real thing, and if the working memory is it's in overload and doesn't have the necessary bandwidth to create any more stimulus like input, there's no way we're going to transfer that from working memory to long-term. So we wanted to give them a step back. We also realized like a lot of this work is magnanimous and all giving. And our teachers are running sprints for kids, like marathons. And they never have the opportunity to check in with themselves. So they would have to take days off for very like human things. Like they wanted to eat lunch with their kid, and they deserve to have that. Our teachers also wanted, like they moved into a new house, they needed to go to check in on their utilities. That's a real thing. Needed to go to DMV. We wanted to give them some time during the school year to do just that, but also to shed some of the stress that is brought on by like the school, but also the ones they're running into when they're addressing some of the stressors in students' lives. We also changed our school day. So we created a flexible lunch. It's called Power, Plan, Organize, Work, Eat, Relax, where students could make data-driven decisions around their day so they could get what they need when they need it. One of the challenges of rural communities, many of you know, is that, one, our students are bused quite the distance, and we couldn't afford to run buses after school. And many of our parents are working or maybe not have the means to pick their student up from after-school tutorials. So we designed that right in the middle of the school day. So we don't assign like kids A lunch or B lunch. Our kids can kind of fill out like what they need in the middle of the day. So if they're assigned to a standards lab, which we call, where they need an additional at-bat or there's some unfinished learning that we need to cinch up, a teacher can reserve a student or a student can opt into it. And a student may say like, I need that during A, so I'm gonna eat during B. Identity markers matter to us. So I want my kids to explore like, what does it mean to be a student of color and love anime? What does it mean to be a student of color and love to play ping pong? So we wanted to give them additional at-bats during the day so they could build their depth and their mental models, which could dramatically change how they see the world. We also changed our curriculum, and you'll see this when we play the micro school video. We gave our students like passion projects in which we would wrap the standards, the curriculum standards around the things that kids are passionate about. And our students also wanted to solve some of the big problems in their community, so we're able to have them like create like these heat maps. So you can figure out where is the greatest need for the problem. Now, how might I use logarithms to drive that forward? Or one of my students of color wanted to create a natural hair chemical product. So let's look at the chemistry standards and how might we pull those in to help a student better understand how to reach success in that course. We also have a Roses in Concrete identity curriculum, where our students get to pause and think about what makes them who they are, how they've gotten there. How do I explore identities? How do I commit to identities? And then re-explore if I need to. Because one thing we know to be true at North Edgecombe High School is that either way, if we don't give kids the space to think about their identities, then those things are going to hold up their working memory and overload it. So we want to build dedicated space so students can explore that. But also, when my students enter the world, I want them to know what does it mean to be a black male doctor? But be deeply affirmed in who you are and your experience. So we wanted to give space for that. We also have an advisory for all. Because many of our children experience trauma at a profuse rate. And one thing that we know is that when kids hold on to a traumatic experience, they get the flush of cortisone, which prohibits them from actually accessing their prefrontal cortex. It's the very thing they need to actually feel success in school. So though we can't run in front of and block kids from every traumatic experience, one thing we know that science says that they need an angel in the nursery, the one person they feel the most connected to in school. And when they see that person and feel into that person, they get a rush of oxytocin, which could flush that cortisone out of their bodies, which could help them access their prefrontal cortex. Looks like we got it up.
1900s. We just haven't changed it at all. What we really want is for our kids to be able to live out their passion and their purpose, and for our kids to be resilient in the face of challenges.
Our students deserve to have those special opportunities. They deserve to have things that other kids in, affluent areas have.
Each of our kids are special. Each of our kids have something to offer the world. And if we continue with a systems first way of doing school, so many of our kids are going to continue to fail.
How do we design school with the kids that are in our schools now and with the communities that we're really working with?
This year is our pilot program, so we're piloting a new school model. This model is not traditional, it's extremely radical.
We were starting to explore, what it might look like to engage in school transformation.
We looked at other school systems, we looked at other districts, we looked at other states. We wanted to look for innovative things that were helping high-need students be successful.
We went through this year-long human-centered design process.
We started with just listening to parents, listening to kids. What were their hopes and dreams? And then building right around that.
Not, the four of us sitting around the table just designing for the community, but really designing with the community after doing a lot of empathy work, having a lot of conversations, focus groups.
We're trying to do some research about why kids don't go to school.
Because school can be boring. It's a lot of work. People don't like to use their brain.
The kids wanted more of a voice in what they were learning. They said, that school doesn't always feel relevant to real life.
When they give you something you're not really interested in it, it's gonna make you not want to do it and want to really participate or put all your effort into it.
I'm a goofy student, so I would want to have a goofy teacher.
I also want the teacher to make learning more fun, because when it gets boring, I get distracted and don't focus at all.
They talked a lot about relationships, and wanting to have relationships with teachers, wanting to have relationships with administrators, wanting relationships with each other.
I want a teacher that I could tell personal stuff to, and we could just talk and get along, and they will understand.
Because I want to be like Mr. Cannon and Mr. Buller. I'm trying to be a young principal like my brother is right there.
That process essentially ended in a new school model.
We asked for volunteers, any kids who wanted. Didn't matter if you were part of the Exceptional Children's Program or if you had some discipline issues. If you were interested in being a part of the micro school, we wanted you to be a part of it.
Right now, you're at North Edgecombe High School. This is one of the buildings at North Edgecombe that has been converted into the School of Innovation for the year. This year, the School of Innovation is operating as a micro school pilot with 30 kids. We started the year with 18 8th graders and 12 9th graders. We decided we would bring 18 8th graders over from Phillips Middle School. They're just housed on the campus of North Edgecombe for this year.
Structurally, it's just completely different.
We have houses like American Ninja Warrior, like that show. There's 3 houses: Isabini, Sparrow, and Amistad. With different houses, we do challenges and stuff, and sometimes they give us points on like whoever wins the challenges and whatnot.
We try to have like a focus on ensuring that kids feel connected as a community, feel connected to an adult.
Every day at the micro school, we start our day in a particular way, and we're going to practice and start that on day 1. And so this is what we call meta moments. Everybody say meta moments. Meta moments. We're going to take some time to be reflective and get centered and connected to where we are.
The purpose of meta moments is just to help them pause and breathe and sometimes literally meditate, but certainly reflect on, where am I? What do I want today? What goals am I going to set? How am I going to achieve them?
That means a lot to a student. That means a lot to an adult.
If you only want me to read it and you're not interested in sharing it, put a star in the top corner.
In my personal life, when I get home, I struggle sometimes. So when we have meta moments in the morning, it helps me reflect on what happened, and it makes me feel better because I know that people care about me here.
You want me to come to class and you want me to be engaged and you want me to pay attention to what you're doing, but my mind is still on what happened last night or this morning. If I don't check in emotionally and socially to be okay, then my day is different.
We know that we have a number of kids who experience trauma at a very profuse rate. But we know that when kids experience joy or they experience empathy, they get the rush of oxytocin, right? It's that feel good. We have to ensure that kids have a number of experiences in schools where they can experience joy, where they can feel that, right? Because outside of it, kids don't have the opportunities to.
Let's go ahead and verbally acknowledge some of those people that we see doing amazing things this week.
I want to shout out Sabrina because she helped me overcome a fear of mine.
I like to affirm Joe for being basically like a big brother to me.
I want to shout out Yari for stepping out of her comfort zone.
We're just taking a different spin on what it means to be an adolescent. That we don't have to say mean things to each other. Saying something positive is a good thing.
Every Wednesday, our students engage in something called the Roses and Concrete curriculum, where we're doing some really deep identity work because we know that if you're going to be resilient, you need to have an understanding of your identity and other people's identities and how that works in the world.
We talk about our identity, so social economics, your race, your age, what you can do as who you are.
Kids are thinking about how oppression shows up, going deep and understanding what makes me a target group, but also what then also makes me a dominant group when I stand in that intersection.
This is who I am. This is who I'm becoming.
It's very accepting here.
It's a safe space where people can express themselves and be who they want to be.
We teach using the design thinking model.
What we are going to be using in the micro school is called the design thinking model. So it's like a steps in a process. You need to really understand who you're designing for and why you're designing.
Students engage in what we call passion projects, so we're trying to expose them as much as we can to as many different passions as possible.
We do lots of projects.
One of my favorite projects that we have done so far was about violence. We all chose a different level of violence, and my group chose rape. We did research about it and how to decrease it.
Getting the opportunity to do projects that basically I like to do. The project that I'm working on now is to actually I'm creating a child's book about homelessness.
In this generation, not everybody's accepting. We wanted to create an account saying you're in the right place, you are accepted and you are loved. So it's pretty much we're just trying to help people with their identity.
Initially, our vision was there will be no math, science, ELA, social studies class. It's just through projects you will learn everything together, and that's still our vision. But if I'm being honest, we're not there yet. What we learned the first semester was our kids were not getting what they needed for math.
Math is the only content area that this is math class and we do math here. Everything else is like incorporated in some type of project. One of our scholars, he's still just like, he just doesn't like school. He just says he doesn't like school. He says it over and over and over again. And so just this week, I kind of challenged him to take a different direction. They're building tiny houses and they're like researching everything and anything that like is involved with like building a community and a house and like sustainability, and like he's just not really into it. But I know that he really loves like security systems. I was like, well, we're building this community. Like how could we create a security system? How do we keep it safe? And this kid worked 2 hours straight like researching all these things. He's like drawing it out.
That's perfect. So as they mentioned, we leveraged the human-centered design process to create the micro school, but we also leverage the human-centered design process to help our kids engage in the things that they may be passionate about, which takes some critical work in like our curriculum planning, because we have to grab that information for kids, right? We do a poll, like what are the things that you're really passionate about right now, and then we have to take that information and lay out the curriculum to figure out like what suites of information and standards would fit where, and what is our best like instructional pivot to help kids get there, which one takes a ton of like instructional muscle on our teachers to be able to do, but we also believe that in terms of time, if we're not laying out the space for them to do it, then there's no way it's going to happen. So Restart, we've been able to think differently about how we're using like our planning. We have a traditional planning days that are made available through the district, but we also take some of our Restart money, because we could move across like budget lines. We took some of our Restart money to give our teachers a healthy amount of like planning days so they can actually engage in the work that we need them to do. So that has been incredibly helpful. And then talent has been like one of our, like I think the top driver for any of this. We've been able to think differently about like certifications, think differently about like who are the people we're bringing on our buildings, and we're not hampered by this idea that our teachers may not have the certifications. When I go into an interview, I'm looking for who are the people who best represent like what we're after, who have a similar orientation, who share the same heart for kids, and who are going to be the megaphone for all of our babies. Like those are the people we're looking for. But through also Restart, we've been able to invite opportunity culture, which has been the #1 game changer for our school, the single most game changer. Because every teacher across our campus receives coaching. Because we have a person who's highly skilled, who's also a graduate of Northeast Leadership Academy, who's highly skilled at having these really high level and narrow coaching conversations with teachers. But we're also able to build our own coaching bench depth. We're now to have 3 teachers coaching and supporting teacher teams and helping them get better really fast and building instructional muscle and like pedagogical moves in the classroom. Now, as a principal, I'm not spread as thin. So I can also get teachers the support they need when they need it. So we have a school design team, which in most schools are kind of like ILTs or administrative teams, where we have like coaching conversations. We have a coaching tracker. I can see like how teachers are performing, what bite-sized feedback teachers have been given for the week. And then we have a culture of videoing. So I can look at the video of like my teacher or my MCL having a conversation with teachers, and I can give her bite-sized feedback so that all of us are getting better really fast. But then I also have a coaching team of 3 teachers in which I can support narrowly, and I'm not spreading myself thin by trying to support everyone across our campus. But then we also can shift some of our job titles to get the things done that we need to get done and ensure that things that matter to us, like we're actually chasing after. So for an example, most schools have traditional counseling positions. We want to think differently about what the school counselor position looks like on our campus to better fit the needs of our kids. So we decided to take the student scheduling process and sprinkle that across a committee. So one, our teachers feel far more empowered. They can give voice to the scheduling process, but then we'll remove that off of the traditional counselor's plate so she can actually chase after the things we need her to go after. We took the college advising and punted it over to the college advisor so that she could, when kids experience trauma, they have someone who could run right into it with them and get them what they need when they need it. But also, like, we have a moment of joy plan, which she monitors to make sure everyone feels good on our campus. So we map out, like, in October, November, December, here are the things we're gonna do for kids, here are the things we're gonna do for teachers to make sure that, like, everyone's healthy and feels good, and people wanna come back to this place the next day. And we've retitled that School Culture and Climate Specialist. But we've been able to kind of dance on some of the titles and roles because we have that level of flexibility. I kind of talked about curriculum already. And our school culture has been the one that's like been most transformed. Because now we have a culture of coaching, so teachers feel very supported. So our teacher retention has went up in an incredible way. People feel good because we have this culture, this moment of joy plan that our school culture and climate specialists can go after. And it's a place where people just love coming to. We have something called a town hall experience, which I stole the language from Matt because we shared newsletters. But our town hall experience moves us away from like what most of us imagine town halls are. We set aside space that our students could be called into our design anchors. So not just values that sit on the wall, but how are we interacting with the values? So for an example, we had a Love First Town Hall 2 weeks ago. We set them right before the rest day. So our students, all 220, left campus to go engage in volunteer work with some of our community partners so they could learn how to better empathize. And for most people, they say, like, that's lost instructional time. But for us, we know, like, the biochemical impact of, like, empathy. And if kids are getting a release of dopamine, then I can better get them to learn math. Students had a chance to, alongside of their advisories, feel connected to their community, run to cornucopias that were around the building, build products that best represented our design anchors. So the kids know, like, here's how we're gonna interact. I tell kids often, when I go in the community, I want them to say to a student, oh, you must be a North Edgecombe High School kid, because you embody their design anchors. But again, guys, we have to get back to designing for just the one kid and not the 1.5. It's gonna be heavy and it's tough, but our kids deserve it. Here's what designing around every genius has gotten us. We're not there yet. And kids deserve more than this, but we're getting closer. And the math right here is where we probably took the biggest risk. And I'm showing this because our kids get to feel into this. They get to know what it feels like to be successful. And each year, we have a massive celebration. We want them to know that you matter and you're the person who did this. You shared your gift. Again, we went from a school that did not exceed consecutively to a school that has done it 3 years in a row. And what do we need from you guys? We need the runway and the guardrails to innovate in a really big way. We're running towards this risk to figure out how do we do school differently for kids, and we're held to the exact same standard as every other school. Sorry, math scores. But we need some guardrails to do this thing. And we want to take the long view. While we figure it out for children, we also know that, like, we don't want to be pressed with the label of a low-performing school while we're trying to create the space to help get to every genius. So we need permission to have the long view. But then we also have to figure out how do we open up Restart for more schools. Like, a school shouldn't have to run themselves into low-performing status. Shouldn't be perennially low-performing to have access to these levels of flexibility. Lauren Lampron in my district is a phenomenal leader. And Lauren needs those levels of flexibility. She could bring to you guys an amazing vision for kids. She could show you how she's going to get there. And I'll believe it because she's fierce. But she should have the same access so that she can get there for kids, so she can get them what they need when they need it and because they deserve it. And again, no one wants to drive their school into low-performing status to get there. But as a principal, I also have concerns that, like, Restart is what got us some of our scores. We're a few points away from being a B school, from an F school. What does that mean for us? We exceeded 3 years in a row. We're no longer low-performing. Does that mean that we're going to be stripped of, like, the Restart, which is the very thing that helped us create the conditions to get us where we are now? So that's my big ask for you guys, is, like, create the runway so that we all can get there together. Because they deserve it. And they deserve it. Thank y'all.